Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lysha and I'm the owner of Lysha Be Creative. In today's video, we are back with a tumbler tutorial and I'm going to be creating a sort of new version of like a tropical inspired tumbler. This is a pretty detailed tumbler, not detailed in the sense of difficulty, but certainly a lot of different steps and different layers to be able to come to the final design. So you guys know that everything I use in today's video will be listed and linked down in the description box down below. You can even find discount codes there as well to save you a little bit of extra money. Before you leave, give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and let's go ahead and jump right into today's video. All right, so of course we are starting off with a 20-ounce skinny tumbler here. I'm gonna go ahead and get this cup prepped and ready to go for its base coat of spray paint. So my typical prep process is always the same. I will sand my cup until it is pretty scuffed up. Essentially what we're doing is just removing all of that shine from the coating that manufacturers put on their tumblers, obviously to make them longer lasting. So we're just going to scuff up that surface, and you can use anything between a 60 and a 100 grit sanding block, anything that's really just going to scuff up the surface. Clean that up with a little bit of 91% rubbing alcohol and a paper towel, or take it in to wash it with just dish soap and water is fine as well. And then I'm going to take that outside to spray paint with a yellow spray paint color. I believe that the color I used for this cup was Emoji from the Colorshot spray paints. And so I just spray painted that one even coat, and then we're back in after it's dried, because Colorshot paints really do dry quite quick. And we're back in to get this glittered. So we're just going to use Mod Podge to adhere our glitter today. So a nice thin coat of my Mod Podge here. And then we're going to go in with Glowing Pineapple. So Glowing Pineapple is a fine cut of glitter from my Aisha Creations. You can find a link to that glitter as well as a discount code down in the description box to save you a little bit of extra money. So we're going to do a nice layer of Glowing Pineapple all over the cup, making sure we get everything covered on our first go. You guys know I say this, I feel like every tutorial. Anytime I'm using Mod Podge, my goal is always to get full coverage in one pass. I don't want to have to go back and wait for this to dry, or use my heat gun to speed up the drying process to then go back in with a second coat of glitter. If I can get it all done in the first shot, I'm golden. I'm good as gold and I'm ready to go. So once this is colored, or completely glittered, I should say, I'm going to set this aside and we'll let that dry, let the Mod Podge dry for about 30 to 45 minutes. Then we'll go ahead and get this on the turner. And while this is on the turner, getting coats of epoxy, we're going to head into Cricut Design Space to get our stencil decals and our palm trees ready to go. So here in Cricut Design Space, what I've done first is pulled up a rectangle shape, and I've sized that to fit the height and width of my cup. So my cup measured about 9.5 inches around and a little over 8 inches long. I'm not really I don't really mind how long the cup is for this first initial section. So after I've gotten that larger square, this is going to be kind of my guideline to help me set up the stripes I'm trying to create on this cup design. So I take another rectangle and I open that up and I size that to be about 0.25 inches wide with a length of like 11 inches long. Doesn't really matter the length. Really, we're just trying to get the spacing correct. So what I did first was I put one kind of rectangle right along close to the edge and then put another one right on the edge of that original square that we created. That way I could make sure that when the last stripe, which is at the very end of my square here, that way there's a little bit of a gap at the end, which, because this is going to be a full wrap, I want to make sure that there's a little bit of that gap there present so that those two final stripes are not up against each other. So then what I do is I just duplicate one of the rectangles, the long rectangles, and just make those stripes, put them all the way through that section, making sure they fit evenly. I then will align them go to the align tool and click align bottom so they're all even. and then I'll highlight them all again and then click distribute horizontally. That way all of the stripes are evenly spaced apart. Once I've gotten that done, I then will just attach those all together. That way I can be sure that they're going to cut all together the size and width apart that I need them to be. Then I go into images and I'm going to grab a palm tree. So I'm going to go back and create another square that fits the length of my cup. So again, 9.5 inches around with a like 8.25 in my height. I'm then going to take my palm trees and I'm trying to create sort of like a, sort of like a pattern of palm trees on the top and bottom of the cup that I then will wrap around the cup to give that tropical vibe that we're going for this design. So I've taken one of those palm trees and I've gone ahead and just placed it sort of at the bottom edge. I know I'm not going to need the full length of these palm trees, so I'm just creating a few palm trees that will fit across the bottom. Again, changing direction so it doesn't all look the same, even though we are using the same palm tree. So I'm going to do about 4 palm trees here on the bottom, just making them different sizes. That way, again, they don't look like they're the exact same palm tree, just butted up against each other. I'm going to do that all the way till I get to the end. And then I'm going to attach these 4 palm trees together that are on the bottom. So I'm just going to shift and click those, attach those. I'm then going to duplicate this. And then what I'm going to do is just flip the orientation of these palm trees and just do the top row as well. So the top and bottom row will match exactly. It might not necessarily be how they get placed on the actual tumbler. However, I wanted to make sure that they were the same size, even if they get shifted a little bit, because I'll probably do this in 2 sections when we get to the cup. So then I'm going to attach the entire set of 8 palm trees together and then use my slice tool to slice both of those palm tree sections on the square behind it. That way we have just the shorter version of the palm trees that we'll need, and that way it'll be a little bit easier to wrap. So then I'm just going to delete all of the pieces that I don't need anymore. So the brown palm trees, the square that was in the background, and then I'm going to make sure these are all attached. That way this does get cut on the same sheet of vinyl. I'm placing it back on those stripes just to make sure it's all going to fit. The stripes will be on stencil vinyl and the palm trees will be on a green, like hollow looking vinyl that I got from Tech Wrap. So now we are back to our cup, and this cup now has 2 coats of epoxy on it. I did use Flynn Sisters Fast Cure epoxy to get this cup kind of ready to go quite quickly. So 2 coats of epoxy, because this is a fine glitter, I didn't need to go in with a 3rd coat before it was pretty smooth. We're now just going to do our traditional sanding that top rim to establish a fine line of stainless steel along the top rim, and then just going along the cup on anything that might still be a little bit rough or bumpy, and along the bottom as well, to make sure that everything is smooth and ready for the next step in the process. So we're going to be doing, we're going to be adding the stripes, I should say, the stencil stripes to this cup. And so I'm going to get my cup cleaned off, of course, first with 91% rubbing alcohol to remove all that sanding debris that we created when we scuffed up and sanded any rough sections on the cup down. And then we're going to go into applying the stencil. So the stencil is meant to create sort of like a peekaboo look over the cup here. And so I'm not going to use the palm trees yet, but I wanted to show you that I did already get those cut. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my new Tech Wrap vinyl, my new Tech Wrap transfer tape, I should say. So you guys know that I don't really have like a favorite transfer tape right now. I feel like I'm always on the hunt for a really good one. I was using contact paper for a while from the Dollar Tree, which I still do very much love, but I was recently sent Tech Wrap's transfer tape, and so I figured I would try this out as well and see if it's something that might end up being my go-to. I definitely feel like it worked really well, but I haven't put it to the test as far as using this to apply on more difficult vinyls to lift, like a textured metallic vinyl or some of those more tricky, thicker vinyls that sometimes have a hard time lifting onto the transfer tape when you need to, apply them to different items. So I'm just going to size my transfer tape down. That way I can treat this set of stripes as a full vinyl wrap, if you will. So you'll notice too that my stencil here, my stencil stripes are a bit shorter than what was in Design Space. And that is because I ended up just cutting them so that they better fit my cup when I apply them, knowing that having them a little bit longer like I had originally done is probably not going to be helpful when I go to apply these to the cup. So I just took my paper cutter and kind of chopped off the bottom and what I needed. And so now we're going to be able to get these easily placed on the cup without having to do any additional sort of trimming on the bottom edge to make sure that everything is even. So we're going to treat this sort of stencil as a full vinyl wrap, just like we would for a regular sheet of 12 by 12 pattern vinyl. So I'm going to go ahead and measure this on my cup to make sure that it's going to fit nicely all the way around and that everything looks and appears to be straight. Then going to just take the vinyl backing and cut off about an inch or so of the backing, and then we can go ahead and get this first inch of transfer tape and the stencil applied. Then I'll flip it so it is facing away from me and use a combination of both my squeegee tool and my fingers to help get all of these stripes placed nicely on the cup and evenly. Just going back and forth and making sure that this is rolling onto the cup straight, that I'm not introducing any bubbles under my vinyl or any wrinkles or things that is causing the vinyl to go on crooked. Take your time with this. I always find that the slower you go and the more patience that you have with the vinyl, the more successful you're going to be in getting this to apply straight. Get this applied all the way around here. And with this final stripe here, it looks like I didn't give myself quite enough space. We had a little bit of a section where this was definitely really butted up against the next section. So really easily, I'm going to go ahead and just remove my transfer tape off the top of this entire vinyl wrap here. I will say that this Tech Wrap transfer tape is very sticky. I actually had a really hard time getting it off the stencil. It kept rolling up on itself, so unfortunately I wasn't able to save the transfer tape like I normally do to use for another project because it was so sticky that I had a tough time getting it off. But anyway, to remedy the situation with that stripe that's a little bit too close, I'm just going to pick that stripe up specifically and just sort of eyeball it and place it directly in between those sections. So if you look closely, you can tell that it is a little bit closer than the other stripes to one another, but overall you can't really tell unless you're looking for that. After that was applied, I took this outside and spray painted it with a white spray paint first, so a primer, and then went over that with Krylon's fluorescent pink paint to give myself this beautiful fluorescent pink that we're going with for this tropical vibe themed tumbler. I'm now just going to remove all of the stencils from the cup, and that is going to reveal that beautiful, beautiful yellow glitter that we have underneath this cup. I'm loving how this is looking. It really is turning out really cute. Can't wait to show you the other parts of this and how this is going to come out. So I'm just going to finish getting this kind of removed. I then will put this cup back on the turner. So I wanted to make sure that I protected my paint since I just have the two colors of paint on here and not damage that when I go to add my transfer tape and other vinyl decals on top. So I put this back on the turner and added a little bit of Diamond Magic to my coat of epoxy, my Fast Cure, and then this was ready to come back off the turner to apply the palm trees. So now we're going to go and apply the palm trees here. And so I ended up not having enough of this vinyl to get that fourth palm tree on the bottom. So I had to use a smaller piece of the same vinyl to get a fourth palm tree cut for the bottom section, which is why this doesn't look exactly like it did when we left Cricut Design Space. But I am going to apply this in two sections. So I'm just applying the transfer tape to the top portion of the palm tree grid that we created in Cricut Design Space, and I'm just going to apply that first, and then I'll go back and apply the other sections of palm tree after. So again, we're going to treat this again just like a full vinyl wrap, with obviously just the top half of the tumbler here. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is all going to lift quite nicely off the backing. I'm going to get that first sort of inch or so applied onto the cup and get this rolled on as easily as I can. So we're going to start with that first sort of half inch, get that adhered, then flip that away from me to make it a little bit easier to be able to roll the backing off of the vinyl from the back side. That way we can go ahead and get these applied. So after I got to about the second palm tree, I realized that things were going a little bit crooked. So A quick way, an easy way for me to remedy that was for me to just take my scissors and go ahead and just cut this palm tree, these two palm trees away from the transfer tape and the backing. That way I could replace that section on the cup and make sure that this was going to go on straight. So I'm just going to remove the transfer tape off those first two palm trees just so that I don't run into any issues with me accidentally applying the next two sections of palm tree over that transfer tape, causing a little bit of issue when we go to remove the transfer tape later. So, and then I just replaced these two palm tree sections on the rest of the cup, putting it back where it was, just about where it was supposed to be. It's slightly off, but you can't tell since the palm trees don't touch anyway. And then got the second set of palm trees applied and placed onto the cup. So that was my little kind of trick for when things do start to go haywire. You can't really do this with a full vinyl wrap, but when you are doing sort of these patterns that you're creating, you can sometimes easily remedy or fix those issues that you might run into when things start to go a little haywire or a little crooked on your cup, to be able to still get this applied the way you want it to be. So now we're going to go in and apply the bottom set of palm trees. So again, I only have 3 here, but don't worry, we're going to go back and I will replace the palm tree that should have been there. I will replace that 4th palm tree down at the bottom. So we're going to remove the entire backing. I just was ready to go for it. Decided not to really do the hinge method or do like the typical way I would do the pattern vinyl. I just was like, let's go for it. Worst case scenario, I'll, chop off a little bit off the bottom if things go a little bit wonky for me, if things don't look straight. But I was able to get this successfully applied to the bottom portion of the cup and then just get that transfer tape removed. That way we could go ahead and get the final 4th palm tree applied to the cup here. So final palm tree, we're just going to place right on the bottom section here in that open gap. I just tried to make sure that it was evenly spaced between the palm trees on either side of it. That way it didn't look like it was leaning more to one side or the other. And that was it for the palm tree section. So I'm loving how this is looking. It is looking quite nice. And so I'm just going to go through and make sure that there isn't anything that looks a little weird, that there aren't any bubbles under my vinyl. I'll take my craft knife if I need to and just pop any of those bubbles by just cutting a slit in the vinyl and then smoothing the air out from under that. And then this part of the vinyl is pretty much done. So I'm just determining where I'm going to put the center decal. And so I didn't show you in Cricut Design Space, but I ended up going to Creative Fabrica and finding a really cute Aloha pineapple themed decal. And so what I did with that is, of course, I'm going to cut the decal on water slide, which you'll see me apply later. But I did also turn that image into a basic cut and just cut that on vinyl. That way I have that white backing so that I don't have to worry about doing a printable vinyl situation and using my cricut, which doesn't always like to cut things like it's supposed to. So I went ahead and just applied that circle there. And now I wanted to add a little bit of pineapple. Since my decal is pineapple themed, I found a half sheet of this beautiful pineapple vinyl I got from a vinyl gallery, and I went ahead and cut out just the pineapples. So I cut out like 4 or 5 of them and of different shapes and different kind of cutouts. And now I'm just going to take those and apply them to the cup. So this is a great way to use sort of your excess vinyl. I don't know about you guys, but I typically have like an entire shelf or entire bin full of just pieces of vinyl that I could use for projects, but typically it just sits in the bin because I'll start with a full sheet of vinyl versus going back to my scrap bin. So this is a really good way to use up some of those scrap pieces that you had, or maybe, utilize some of that vinyl that doesn't always get utilized or has been used, but you just have sitting around. Great way to use those scrap pieces to be able to add to maybe other elements of your cup, or maybe go back to that scrap pile and add a little bit of vinyl to it and make it something new. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply the rest of these little pineapple pieces all over the cup. I am going to put a couple too in that center section on either side of the decal, sort of the larger pineapples, the full pineapples here, to get those applied to the cup as well, to really just give into this really beautiful tropical vibe that we have going on. And I'm really starting to just fall in love with this design and how this is coming out. I think that this would look really nice in a lot of different bright colors. I love this striped look and this extra layered work. It is a lot of hands-on cup time, if you will, versus some of my other tutorials where we do a lot of the work up front. But I still love like this super layered look that we're getting. Even though it's a little bit more work, you know what? Sometimes a little bit more work is just worth it, in my opinion. So now we're going to go back and we're going to get this applied, our water slide applied. So I did go and apply a coat of epoxy over this, all of the decal work. You don't have to do that, especially if you're going to use a glossy vinyl as your backing for your water slide, but I just had the time anyway, and I decided to go in and do another coat of epoxy since I'm using fast cure epoxy, which really does, you know, cure really quickly. I was able to get this on for another coat of epoxy, just regular epoxy, no added glitter or anything. That way I had a really nice glossy surface to apply my water slide to. So I did print my water slide decal on Hippo water slide paper. It's typically my go-to. I do also have a discount link and code for you down in the description box to save you a little bit of money in case you are in need of some clear water slide. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this water slide applied. I do have some tutorials on my channel if you're in need of help with getting water slide applied to your cup. But I just let that water slide dry for about 30 to 45 minutes, made sure it was completely free of water and bubbles, put that back on the turner for, of course, 2 final coats of my Flynn Sisters Premium Epoxy, and this is the final look at the cup. I think this screams summer, and it is just making me wish that I was sitting on a beach somewhere, soaking up the sun with my favorite drink in hand, but instead I will just look forward to having this cup on hand with me. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again soon.